Yes, guys, welcome back to another stream. I'm joined tonight by MCFCLADS, who's got some breaking news for us. He's got a chair.
I'm on a chair here, lads. I'm on a chair. Finally, it's been many years. I've now unlocked the ability to sit down.
Oh, bro, man, I watched your vlog yesterday. I was at the gym, man.
Yeah,
I had the iPad out, and I was like on YouTube. I was like, let's have a look what's happening here. And then I watched Angry Ginger's vlog. And
yeah.
then it come up, we recommended MCFCLADS. I was like, oh, yeah, let me watch this one, man. It's been a couple days. Well, it's been more than a couple days, but it's what have you made this week of the reaction to the Manchester derby from the United point of view? Because
Yeah.
their fan base is in total meltdown. And I mean, I was just on with a football terrace, and I was just saying, like, it's sparked. That result has now sparked. I know there was like rumours of it happening before, but that has now sparked a huge divide in the Manchester United fan base of Ten Hag in, Ten Hag out, and we've caused a lot of it by the result of the weekend.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of sort of difference in the way different people reacted. But at the end of the day, Ten Hag's come in. He's been given far too much power. He's been able to basically sign who he wanted. It went pretty well for them last year, but at the end of the day, they've still lost 7-0 at Anfield, still got battered by City. They won a trophy, to be fair, which is something they haven't done in 5 years. So it's not been all bad for them, but this season's been a disaster. The games they've won, if you think about the Copenhagen game, the Champions League, that was lucky. Last-minute save they needed from the penalty to win that. Forest, they were 2-0 down. Wolves, they shouldn't have won that game. The last minute, they get a nice decision. So if you look at the games they have won, they've not deserved all of them, and the games they've lost, they pretty much deserve to lose all of them. So, yeah, I just think they've not been good enough this season at all.
Yeah, no, it's a madness. You know, when we played him, I've had this feeling for like a few years, but even the sixth, and this kind of sounds mad, right? Because obviously when I was growing up in City were rubbish, like I never would have dreamt saying this, but like I felt that in the last like 5-6 years we've let them off a hook to a certain degree.
Yeah,
because even in the home game last year when we scored 6, it kind of softened it by the fact that they scored 3 goals. But the game on Saturday, it was complete domination. It was complete domination, and you know we've done the combined 11s and that, and we I think most of us agree that we wouldn't take a single Man United player in there. I mean, what is their level? Do United fans have to accept now that this is actually maybe just their level? They are now a mid-table club. There's not. I don't know about you. In my opinion, there's no way they're getting in the top 4 this year. Not a chance.
No, I just think they're rotted. I think they're completely and utterly they've just rotted over the last 10 years since Fergie left. You know, the analogy you can use is that he kind of, yes, mate, I see that. Yeah, no, the analogy you could use is that Fergie basically got the last kind of miles out of an old car, and as he sort of pulled it onto the drive, passed over the keys to David Moyes, and it's just blown up as soon as he got in it. So I just think they've rotted and rotted. It's got worse and worse. They've spent money inefficiently. They've not made the right signings. They've not made the right recruitments. The staff's poor. They've not developed the stadium. And you can blame that on the Glazers, or you can just blame it on the culture of the club, that they think they're Man United and they deserve to be at the top. And it's not been where they've been for the last 10 years. They've not been at the top the last 10 years. They've not competed properly for a league title in the last 10 years. And they've not really done anything, really. They've won a couple cups. But if you look at them and Leicester City, who's had a better 10 years? And I know Leicester in the Championship, but Leicester have won a league title in the last 10 years. So the fact that we're even debating that is mental, really.
I know. Obviously, we're looking at this from sort of an outside perspective, although there might be some United fans in the chat. If you was a United fan now, would you be on the Ten Hag out or Ten Hag in? Because for me, I find it really tricky, because if he's in, United have to make it clear that he cannot sign another player, because he's made it abundantly clear in the transfer windows that he's had that his whatever you call it, talent ID or whatever you want to call it, his knowledge for signing players into this league is horrific. It is 0 out of 10. It is shockingly bad. So if he stays, they have to get a sporting director for me, and that's the person that has to be making the signings, right? And of course, Ten Hag can have a say or whatever, no problem, but it has to come from somebody else who, this sounds dumb, knows about football players who can play in this division. However, on the flip side, he's shown to me that he's just, this season in particular, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's coming. He can't play. He's not going to play Ajax style football. I don't know about you, bro. Give me your own opinion, but I thought that's why he was brought in. I thought part of the reason they brought him from Ajax is because they wanted to implement that sort of style. Where are you on this debate?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they've almost gone too deep with him because I don't know if he's the right man for the job. They've again gone for somebody that's, they've gone for a strange option there. They've already had the high-profile Mourinho. They've had the Louis van Gaal. They've had the David Moyes. They've sort of gone through every kind of characteristic in a manager except Ten Hag, which is sort of the slightly inexperienced sort of foreign manager. They've had the club legend in Solskjaer. And I think they've given him far too much power. He's had a lot to deal with, fair enough, getting rid of Ronaldo, which is the player they should have never signed in reality.
Yeah.
And, various other things, the Sancho stuff off. And he has had a difficult job, but at the end of the day, he's had far too much power. It should not be in his hands to sign players, like you said. He should be given a sporting director or a team of people, a profile of player he wants, whether it be a winger, a striker, a midfielder, and they should be dictating who he signs, not him just cherry-picking players from his old team or high-profile names like Casemiro that he wants to sign. So I think he's had a night. It was not necessarily his fault, but it's been a nightmare for him just because he shouldn't have this much power. But the position I'm in now is one shared by at least some United fans, and that's, I don't think from their perspective they shouldn't be sacking him now because that is just going to make things worse. They're going to need to get him off. I personally, as a City fan, want them to sack him because I think that's good for their demise as a club. But I think if they keep him, that is beneficial for them long term because they can at least. What's the point of giving him all this money, all these resources, and then sacking him after?
Well, yeah, no, that's a fair comment. I guess the response to that would be, if you're just throwing good money after bad, are you just continually throwing money down the drain? And are you able to get a tune out of these players? You can say we spent 90 million on Anthony, but ultimately, if he's not good enough, he's not good enough, and he's spent that money. But this is why I think it's a super difficult decision, and I think that actually now what you're starting to see is the fragmentation in the United fan base, and that is going to make their club toxic and hell. Because even in the last 10 years, there's been there's been a few toxic moments and that, but really they've not fragmented too much. Even on the Ollie stuff, even when people wanted Ollie out, even the Ollie in people kind of knew why they wanted him out because he clearly wasn't a good manager. They just didn't want to voice their opinion. I don't think I've seen, like Moyes, everyone wanted him gone. You know what I mean? Mourinho, some people wanted him to stay, but it got toxic towards the end. Now, the fan base is becoming so divided, and that it's not just like a small decision. There are some people who are saying, we need to stick with this manager. We cannot continue to keep chopping and changing. That's not worked for the last decade. What is this to suggest that that's going to work there? But then you've got the other people who say, but this manager is not the right manager. He's not good enough. And that's now what's causing a divide. If you go on Twitter, I'm sure you've seen it, the United fans are in complete meltdown, arguing with each other, which is now, for me, the final straw for their football club. Because once the fans start arguing with each other, it is very, very difficult to get that back. And we've been very lucky as a football club. You know what I mean? Even before the takeover, where we've not really had, not that in my sort of memory, any real splits in the fan base. Maybe there were some people with Mancini who wanted to keep him. Some people wanted him out. But, ultimately, most of the time, we've all been chill. I just feel that they're about to enter. It sort of reminded me, bro, of the Wenger ending at Arsenal, where you had real passionate Arsenal fans saying, keep him in. He's a legend of our club. Different circumstances, of course. But then you had people like, yeah, but he's not good enough no more, so he's got to go. It's a mad situation, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them, isn't it? I think the sensible thing to do is just basically give him the time and spend any money you were going to give a new manager coming in. Spend all that money on at least part of improving the infrastructure. The stadium, just turning up at that at the weekend, it's an absolute dump, mate. It's a dump from top to bottom. I mean, I don't know if you saw what Big Steve was saying on his latest video, but he was saying that he went for a piss actually before the game, in the away end toilets, and it was just full of stewards getting changed. So the fact that they've not even got facilities for stewards to get ready to work at a game is mental. How ridiculous is that?
Yeah.
They've just not got from even the training grounds nowhere near on City's level, the academy stuff nowhere near on City's level. And fair enough, it might not be on City's level, but even if you compare their training ground with Leicester's or Brighton's, it's just not even close. It's not even close, and that's supposed to be for a team that. When was the last time United, with the exception of maybe Rashford, brought through somebody from right in the deep of their academy that is going to actually be at their club a long time? Do you know what I mean? City have got Cole Palmer's just gone for 45 million. Rico Lewis is making his way into the first team. Phil Foden. You've seen a lot of these young talents coming through, and if they don't make it, City get big money for them, and that goes towards paying off sort of the long-term training ground, etc. All that stuff is an investment. That's what it is. And United don't seem to think further forward than a year. Really,
I know they don't. But when we was bought by Sheikh Mansour, they made that abundantly clear. This isn't a surprise. What is happening now? They said this from day one. They've said we are going to invest until we get to a point of sustainability. That's what they said from day one. And people used to say, "Oh, you can't spend all this money." But a lot of the investment that was going into the stadium, the infrastructure there, the training ground, the whole global operation of having offices down in London, in America, Asia, building the club up effectively. You know what I mean? We have been at our club for since 1894, whatever. But ultimately, making that jump from a mid-table team, which is kind of what we were under taxing, to a global, one of the biggest clubs in world football, it takes investment, and you've got to be prepared to lose a lot of money, and that's exactly what happened. But now, not that I really care about the finances, but if you have a look at when the finances come out, City are sometimes even making profits. Our net spend on transfers is actually ridiculously low. If you look at over a 3 to 4 year period, I think it's like £150 million net spend.
Yep.
But that's what they said they was always going to do. The differences with United is there was already a global sort of football club. They already had a stadium, needed renovation or whatever. But because of their sort of ownership and stuff, they weren't prepared to keep investing to sustain it. They was just take. And whilst they were winning stuff under Fergie, that was all good. Now it's obviously gone downhill. I want to ask you a question, bro. Maybe a bit of a difficult one. But I get, and I'm sure you get the same sort of questions actually with vlogs and stuff. But I get a lot of people in the chat saying, LB, when Pep Guardiola goes, how do we avoid a similar scenario happening at City? And I've said my sort of this a lot, but what would your sort of reaction? What would your message be on that?
Yeah, well, my message would be that even when Pep came in times before, there's a network of sort of people, facilities, and so on right behind Pep that supports him. If you dropped Pep into United now, he'd make improvements on the pitch, but the stuff behind him would just be a disaster. So he'd probably fail in the end. Despite him being the best manager ever, in my opinion, he would fail because you are destined to fail going to Man United because of not just the pressure. Some managers can deal with the pressure, but the facilities and the whole strategy of recruitment is just not right. There's nothing about that club that is up to scratch. It's completely flawed from top to bottom. And City, thankfully for us, is the complete opposite. You've got the good training ground. You've got the facilities. You've got, a committed team of people behind Pep that allow him to succeed. And I think he'd succeed in most clubs, but Man United isn't one of them. So, I think when Pep leaves, despite us not being able to replace him with a manager that's as good as him, because that's impossible, you're still going to have that stuff behind whoever comes in that's going to allow them to succeed. And that's why I think this idea that as soon as Pep leaves, it's going to be like a Fergie leaving United style event. I don't think that's the case. I think there'll be some form of drop-off, potentially. Maybe not even that. But I just don't think it's going to be anywhere near the size of what's happened at United.
No, there will be a drop-off, bro. We've got the best manager. In my opinion, we've got the best manager of all time, in my personal opinion. So there is going to be a drop-off. But I'm 100% with you. The difference is when we get a new manager in, first of all, the manager that we bring in will play a similar style of football to Pep Guardiola, right? So that means that you're not going to have to make wholesale changes with the football club playing staff, which is, if you look at United, they've had to do that. They've gone from Mourinho to Van Gaal, totally different manager. To Mourinho, different manager. To Ollie, similar manager, but still different. To Ten Hag, different. They've just jumped. They don't have no style. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things people always say to me, the United way. I have no idea what the United way is. You know, with City, we clearly now have a way of playing. Barcelona style. You know that.
It's
so the
flawed mentality, though. That's the problem, mate. It's a flawed mentality because they've got this idea that we're Man United, we'll do this. I don't know if you saw, I'm pretty sure it was a video, I can't remember, it was a quote or something, when Giggs went in as manager towards the end of the season, and one of his speeches before the game was just, we're Man United, and I think they lost 2-0. Do you know what I mean? That's not, it's not, that isn't, that we're Man United isn't, it's something that might have worked 15 years ago with Fergie in charge, when you've got all that other stuff going on behind the scenes, but just that by itself is just pathetic at this point. You need to sort it out. Do you know what I mean? They need an investment behind the scenes. They need huge. I saw a clip from Ralph Rangnick before, and he literally said it's not a few cosmetic changes. It's an open heart surgery. That's what he said it is.
You know what, correct. Bro? You know about him, right? You know Rangnick, when he was there, and I don't know what you felt. I thought the guy was a muppet.
I thought it was awful. Yeah, I thought it was awful. He's not a manager. That's the problem. He's just not a manager. Yeah.
So basically, I've gone on that transition as well of thinking this guy's a muppet. I don't know what he's talking about. And then you look back at him now and you listen to what he says, and I've come to the same conclusion as you. I think put him in a director position, sporting director, something like that. Because if you look at that interview that he done, where he mentioned all those players that he wanted, I think Alvarez, Bellingham, Haaland, Gvardiol, Enzo Fernandez. He literally named and this was well, there was good players, but some of them were like still pretty. They could have got him. He knew what he was talking about. I agree. I don't think he's a good manager. I think director position. But you're absolutely right. That club is just rotten to the core. And obviously, I've seen Saeed in the chat. You know, the fact that now I've seen that clip that's going around on Twitter now of him speaking about Goldbridge. You know what I mean? You know, two of the biggest Manchester United creators, not necessarily. Well, Saeed kind of shouted him out, but like going at each other, because what this club has created is a massive split down the middle, where you've got someone on one. It's like me saying Pep in and you going Pep out. Sorry, I'm just going to say it like that because it's easier for me. You know what I mean? It's like two big creators of the same club having a different opinion, which should just be fine. But because of the rottenness that is there, because of the rot and the horrific state of the club, it becomes friction and it becomes horrible. And then what will happen is people have to pick sides. Oh, I'm with this guy. I'm with this guy. You know what I mean? And it's just a horrible place to be. You know, I'm kind of enjoying it, but it's just it all comes from the top. Listen, I want to move on from United. Big up to Bevo, says the club is ruined from top down. Everything needs changing, from the scouts, the chairman, everything. No manager or player can save this club now. Well, yeah. Listen, it's a madness, but I'm certainly enjoying it. I'll just speak about Arsenal because there was another meltdown yesterday, and it come from a team that's doing all right. They finished second last year. Probably should have won the league, but from where they were in sort of March, April time, doing all right in the league so far, doing all right in the Champions League. But last night, just like Arteta's done before, he didn't take the competition seriously.
Yeah,
he changed players. They got beat, humbled 3-0 or 3-1. And you've got some Arsenal fans coming out again. You've got friction in the fan base because some Arsenal fans are saying, how dare we, a club that has won one trophy since Arteta has come into the football club, hasn't won a Premier League since 2004, and still Manchester City are favourites to win the league. How dare we take that trophy not serious when we're not really going to win the Champions League? City are probably going to win the Prem. We've only got really the FA Cup really now to go for. But then you've got other fans saying, the Carabao Cup's beneath us. Do you know what I mean? It don't matter. We got to focus on the league. Where are you seeing that point of view? If you was an Arsenal fan, would you care?
I think it is. There's a little bit of arrogance there. You're playing West Ham. They're not got the best relationship as clubs, and obviously there's the Rice stuff that probably doesn't come into the minds of the managers going into that game. But yeah, I just think it's an arrogance really. They're playing against West Ham, a good team. They put out an okay but not amazing squad, and then what I thought was embarrassing, I don't know if you saw it, but they're 3-0 down and they start bringing on Bukayo Saka, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? You've already thrown it away. If that's 1-0 and you're 1-0 down or even 2-0 down on 60, 70 minutes, bring them on. But you're 3-0 down. I think that's a bit pathetic. Do you know what I mean? I think that is just a bit pathetic, subbing people like that on. for no reason at the end of the game. You've not taken it seriously. You've almost just sort of thrown the game at that point. And I don't know. I think we went out in a respectful way. We didn't start an amazing team, nor did Newcastle when they played against us. But at least we tried. You could tell we were trying in that game. We didn't play well, but we tried at least. And yeah, I think it's a bit strange because in the Champions League, Arsenal, I think they're on 6 points, but they're not through at all. Like they lost a game away at Lens. They're not doing that well in the league. Obviously, they're doing well, but I think it's one of those. They could say again they got bigger fish to fry, but it's very early, and the Carabao Cup. They win that game yesterday, and they're in the quarterfinals. So
and they're the favourites, bro.
Yeah,
if they win that game tomorrow, they're the favourites.
Port Vale are in the quarterfinals. Do you know what I mean? That should be an easy ride for them into the final, and they should pick up that Carabao Cup. There's no debate about it.
I just think while Pep Guardiola's in this league, I think you've got to just accept really as an opposition fan that you've got a chance of winning the league. Of course, Arsenal have a chance, but you've got to accept that the chances are slim because this manager is just. I mean, if you remember last year, bro, we was in a bit of a mini meltdown. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, January, we were all over the place. It was shocking. Players weren't running around. Pep was calling out the players, saying, "What's going on here? It's not my team."
Happy Flowers team, I think one of the quotes was as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then boom, we're going to win a treble. You got to accept that you're playing against a generational manager. So for me, if I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm looking at it and I'm trying to be realistic. I'm saying, okay, we've got a chance of winning the league, but we're probably not going to win it. The Champions League, I've got to say again, we're probably not going to win that. So there's only 2 competitions left, and one of them City are knocked out of already. And like you say, if they win it, they're in the quarterfinals. So I think that this sort of thing that some Arsenal fans are doing, the trophy's beneath us. What you want about? Do you know what I mean? This is, you've won 1 trophy in 4 years. You spent 600 million quid or whatever. You should. I just think it's wrong, bro.
It's an arrogance, really, isn't it? That's what it is. It's an arrogance, and I don't know what they're playing at, really.
Yeah, big up to Mohammed, who says if Havertz can become a footballer, anyone can. I mean, he was absolutely shocking yesterday. That was probably the worst I've seen him play for Arsenal. And listen, I said at the start of the season, when the transfer window was going, I think Arteta could bring on the sack himself because the signings he's made, I just think he's asking for trouble. He spent 65 million quid, bro, on Havertz, right? Which I just think is a gamble. That's a signing that City could have made. Right. And by the way, I wouldn't have backed it, but we just won the treble. You know what I mean? We were a mint team. Pep's just like, you know what? Let's try. I think I can get a tune out of him. I'll gamble. You know what I mean? He's in a position. They weren't in a position to gamble. They lost. They didn't win anything last year. They lost. They needed to go for proven players. And then this stuff that he's doing with the goalkeeper, man, I just think that is just ridiculous again because, you got what's he called? Raya, who's come in. I don't think he's looked decent at all. I think he looks like an average player. I think on the ball, where's this stuff from that he's good on the ball? I don't think he's good on the ball. He looks shaky, and then Ramsdale looks shaky. I think people been a bit harsh on him last night. Took a deflection, and he's going to have problems there. So again, it ain't looking good, Brev, for us.
Yeah, I mean, they've just unsettled the goalkeeper situation. I don't think it was necessary. Last year, there might have been the odd mistake towards the end, but I thought Ramsdale was good on the whole for the season. I remember that game at Anfield, he made a big save to stop it going 3-2.
He made a couple of big saves.
In the big moments, he seemed to be there most of the time. So, everyone goes through sticky patches, and I think they should have just backed him. The real thing you can do as a manager there is just back him and give him a chance. And if he keeps failing with sort of the manager's sort of backing, then fair enough, bring someone else in January. But I just think that's strange. I think it's strange, to be honest, to bring in another keeper and effectively have 2 first-choice keepers. Especially after, I could understand it a little bit if Ramsdale had been there when Arteta had signed. He'd been there 3. Arteta signed this guy. Do you know what I mean? Arteta signed this guy and pushed him into the team. So it's a really weird situation to be pushing him out again, sort of a year or 2 later. I don't get it.
No, I just think it's proper weird either. Big up to Luke, man. Says Arsenal making questionable signings. United crumbling before our eyes. It's going to be an interesting season. Strap in. Which is why, really, if we cut the crap here, lads, we just need to focus on ourselves. Because in my opinion, right, I'll tell you the truth. In my opinion, our midfield has got weaker since last year. Defence, I think, has improved with the signing of Gvardiol over Laporte, because Laporte hardly played last year anyway. And the attack, whilst Mahrez was a loss, if you actually look, I think, you got Bernardo Silva who can play there. You brought in Doku. I didn't want to see Mahrez leave. I still don't think 30 million was a good price, but we'll leave that to one side. It's only really losing Gundogan. And hey, who knows? We might sign a replacement in January. But the fact is, put all that to one side, we're still better, in my opinion, than everybody else. We're still miles better than everybody else. So I just think we need to focus on ourselves. I think we need to, the Rodri situation, I've said this before, we need to work out what's going on there because when he's not in the team, we do look like we do take a couple drops, you know what I mean? And now in fact, what would you do? Because my opinion on this is I don't think you can buy a replacement DM. I don't think you can go down the route of having a backup centre defensive mid because they're not going to play enough. And then when they get thrown in, they're not going to play the game for 2 months or they're going to play 15 minutes here. I think what you need to do is get someone like a Gundogan who plays in centre mid, plays regularly or semi-frequently. And then if Rodri gets suspended or injured or you just want to rest him, can move into CDM, play it, but also not just be put in from the cold, which is kind of like Phillips. Phillips, when he comes on, no wonder he's rubbish. He's not played a game for 2 months. You know what I mean? What was your view?
I think, the thing is with Phillips, I think if you gave him 20 games in a row now, by the 10th, 11th game, and I think he'd be looking far better than he is now. That's just normal, but I just don't think, as we've seen, he's not really good enough to replace Rodri for the hot and cold games, like you said. So, I think you've got to sign a more diverse player that will be playing regularly, maybe in a different position, and then when they're needed, can play in that Rodri position. And maybe that is John Stones. Maybe we already have that player. Martin has that same opinion from the Mancunian way, and I don't know what you think about that, but it's a bit of a weird one that we did have Rodri and John Stones injured at the same time. If Rodri had got suspended, and then John Stones was available, would he have played? I don't know. That's a question for you, mate.
I'm with John Stones. I don't know if he can do it on his own. Play that 6 on his own. I'm not saying he can. I just don't know because I've not seen it. The one that I would say is I was quite surprised that we didn't see Nunes in that position. Just tried at least because he seems to have a lot of the attributes needed. He's quick, he's agile, he can move around the pitch, he can put a tackle in, he's good on the ball, he can make passes. So I was quite surprised that we didn't see him there. But listen, it's something that City need to address. It's probably, to be honest with you, it's probably our biggest thing that we need to address, even though it's not something for the actual first 11. It's so important because when Rodri comes out of the team, as you saw, we just look a lot worse. Big up to professional pastor, mate. Good to see you again. Says we are gathered here today to celebrate Manchester Ref United, Eric 10 excuses, and Arsenal bigger fish to fry for bottling the Carabao Cup. We thank the Lord for giving us this joy. Amen. Hallelujah. I don't know how this guy comes up with stuff like this, man. But big up to
he's using chat GPT. Write me a witty comment for LB Super Chat. That's what he's doing.
Yeah,
mate.
probably did.
A biblical themed one. Yeah. Right, go.
Just quickly before we wrap up, big game at the weekend, Arsenal Newcastle. Obviously, if City win, and obviously Chelsea Tottenham's a big game as well. But if City beat Bournemouth, which we expect that to happen, do you see Newcastle being able to take any points off of Arsenal? Because obviously City can then potentially, if Newcastle win and we win, we could go 3 points ahead of Arsenal.
Yeah, I never know what Newcastle team's going to turn up sometimes. I mean, they've been good the majority of this season, but then I've seen other games where they do go hot and cold a little bit sometimes. And whether that's against Dortmund, some people say they were unlucky, but I'm not sure, I'm not sure. I've not watched the whole game back, but I think that was just one of them games where they've not got the experience in the Champions League, and playing against Arsenal is going to be difficult for them, especially, here we go. Yeah, especially since we've seen, obviously, Arsenal losing in midweek. They're going to want to bounce back. I believe it's at St. James's Park, isn't it? So, yeah, I think it could be a game where you see Newcastle sort of do some magic, but I don't know. I think it's all about that first goal in the game. If Arsenal score, I just see them winning, really. Hopefully, Newcastle do us a favour there.
Ben says you guys have literally written Spurs off.
I don't want to talk about Spurs, mate, because I've seen this every year for the last 10 years. They'll have a few bad seasons in a row, and then they'll win 12 games in a row at the start of the season and lose to Burnley or someone. So the thing is with Spurs, they've done well. Don't get me wrong, top of the league by a couple of points, but I have no confidence in them sustaining it for the whole season. And,
agreed.
let's see where they are after 25, 30 games is all I'm going to say about them. That's all.
Yeah.
That's my only comment about them at this point.
I agree. And I think if I was a Spurs fan, I'd want it to be that way. I don't want us to be spoke about in the title race. It just puts added pressure on.
Well, yeah, I've spoken to Spurs fans, and I said to them, would you take top 4 now? And the majority of them would say yes, I think. I know.
Yeah.
I think top 4 for them is the realistic target, and they're more than doing that at the moment.
Of course it is. I think any Spurs fan coming here saying, no, the target is the league. I think it's too early to say that. The target should be getting the top 4. You know what I mean? Which they're 4 points off of dropping out. They've got an insurance policy already of being able to lose a game and still be in the top 4. And as you said, as we go through the season, when we get to the end of January or mid February and see where they are, if they're still up there within 5-6 points of the top, then boom, reassess the targets. You know what I mean? But it's like when Arsenal were top of the league last year in like March, April, and people were saying, if Arsenal don't win the league, would you be happy with it? You know what I mean? And I remember Keane saying, obviously not. You wouldn't be happy with that because you're top of the league.
Yeah, because you've got into that position. Yeah, it's all relative to the position you're in. Man United are probably going to be 10th at Christmas at this rate. And at that point, they're going to have to say, are we actually going for top 4? Or are we just going to go for the top 6 at this point? And it was the same situation but reversed. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, defo. Well, guys, listen. It's been an interesting one. Nice little debate there. United fans are they're in meltdown, man. They're in meltdown. It's quite a funny situation to see. Their fan base is split and torn. You're going to start to see arguments between. I mean, you're already seeing arguments between United fans based on their opinions and views. And what's quite funny with that is I don't think either set of those views are wrong. I think if you're a Ten Hag out, I think that's completely reasonable. Based on where you're at the moment. And I think if you're Ten Hag in, it's completely reasonable. But it becomes toxic. And then the fans turn on each other. It's going to become a hellhole, that place. So, listen, Buzzing, anything we should know about MCFC lads, bro? Any announcements, any videos? What's going on, man?
No, not too much. Just keep your eye out for the stuff. I'm trying to get the TikTok, YouTube shorts out almost every day if I can. And yeah, you'll see me on LB's channel at some point next week, I'm guessing.
Yeah, buzzing. Good to have you back. Well, guys, obviously got the watch along on Saturday. It's going to be a big one. Back tomorrow. I've got an opposition preview as well tomorrow, man, with Sam. So, that'll be interesting. So, yeah, I mean, join me tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Make sure you subscribe to MCFC Lads. Make sure you subscribe to It's LB. Big up Mancunian Way in the chat. Go subscribe to him as well. And, catch you in the next one. See you later.